Introduction to printing technology. Organization of printing industry. Printing is one of the greatest human accomplishments in the field of mass communication since the evolution of language and writing. The earliest attempts in printing involved carving on wooden blocks, stone tablets and metal plates. The major milestone in the history of printing was the establishment of printing press with movable types and oil based ink by Johannes Gutenberg of Germany in 1456. Printing is a process of reproducing text and images using a master form or template. Modern printing is done typically with ink on paper using a printing press. It is also frequently done on metals, plastics, cloth and composite materials. On paper, it is often carried out as large scale industrial process and is an essential part of publishing and transaction printing. The organization of each printing company is different. An example of an organization is given in this figure. In general, a printing company consists of three departments: HR department, accounts department and the production department. The production department is headed by a production manager who coordinates the entire printing process. Under the manager, there are production supervisors, designers, screen makers, printers, helpers as well as assistants. The number of staff and the diversification of tasks increase with the size of the company. Major printing processes. All printing processes are concerned with the two kinds of areas on the final output. 1. Image area, printing areas. 2. Non-image area, non-printing areas. After the information has been prepared for production, the pre-press step, each printing process has definitive means of separating the image from the non-image areas. Printing has different types of processes. Some of them are explained here. Offset lithography is the most common printing process. There is sheet fed as well as web offset. Web presses use webs or rolls of paper. Sheet fed presses use paper that comes in sheets. Ink is offset or transferred from metal plates to a rubber blanket cylinder to the paper. Most commercial printers do offset printing. Offset is used for all run lengths from short to long. Web presses are used for long runs. Letterpress is relief printing. Relief printing means the images on the plate are higher than the surface. Example, rubber stamps. Fine letterpress printing is being done by a few printers, but it is very attractive. Flexography is another type of relief printing. It uses flexible rubber or photopolymer plates and follows a web process. Flexo is used for packaging products that include cardboard boxes, grocery bags, gift wraps and labels as cans for bottles. Gravure printing, otherwise known as intaglio, is used to take millions of impressions. Magazines, newspapers, direct mail catalogs, upholstery and textiles, wallpapers, plastic laminates and postage stamps are usually printed in gravure process. Screen printing initially used a silk screen. Ink is forced through a screen using a stencil pattern. Typical uses are T-shirts, signage, point of sale displays, decals and truck signage. Now the screens are made of nylon or dacron and even stainless steel. Engraving produces the sharpest image of all. Steel dies are cut or chemically etched to hold ink. Paper is forced against the plate using tremendous pressure, causing an embossed or raised impression. Run your fingers over the back side of the sheet and you will feel the engraving. Thermography is a less expensive alternative to engraving if you want a raised printing. It uses special powder that adheres to any coloring. Uses include all sorts of stationery products. It does not require a dye as does engraving. Reprographics is a general term describing copying and duplicating. Think about in-house copying departments and copy or quick printing shops, but today every job is a quick printing job, isn't it? Duplicates are made of your originals. Digital printing is the newest kid on the block. Today's presses use either toner or inkjet technology. A brand new image is made from your digital file every time. Digitals are ideal for short run, fast turnaround jobs. You can print exactly the amount you need, which means no waste. Digital has improved tremendously in pricing as well as quality. Most printing firms offer digital copies. Variable data printing (VDP) is a type of digital printing that lets you personalize every copy. Words, images or both can be changed with each impression. Letterpress. Letterpress printing is a technique of relief printing using a printing press, a process by which many copies are produced by repeated direct impression of an inked raised surface against sheets or a continuous roll of paper. A worker composes and locks mobile type into the bed or chase of a press, inks it and presses paper against it to transfer the ink from the type, which creates an impression on the paper. In practice, letterpress also includes other forms of relief printing with printing presses, such as wood engravings, photo etched zinc cuts, it is also called plates, and linoleum blocks, which can be used alongside metal type or wood type in a single operation, as well as stereotypes and electrotypes of type and blocks. With certain letterpress units, it is also possible to join mobile type with slugs cast using hot metal typesetting. In theory, anything that is type high or 0.918 inches can be printed using letterpress. Letterpress printing was a normal form of printing text from its invention by Johannes Gutenberg in the mid 15th century until the 19th century, and remained in wide use for books and other uses until the second half of 20th century. Letterpress printing remained the primary way to print and distribute information until the 20th century, when offset printing was developed, which largely supplanted its role in printing books and newspapers. All forms of data collection were affected by the invention of letterpress printing, as were many careers such as teachers, preachers, physicians and surgeons and artist engineers. More recently, letterpress printing has seen a revival. The process of letterpress printing consists of several stages. 1. Composition. 2. Imposition and lockup. 3. Printing. In a small shop, all would occur in a single room, whereas in larger printing plants such as with urban newspapers and magazines, each might form a distinct department with its own room or even floor. Relief printing. Relief printing is a process where protruding surface faces of the printing plate or block are inked. The recessed areas are ink free. Printing the image is therefore a relatively simple matter of inking the face of the matrix and bringing it in firm contact with the paper. A printing press may not be needed, as the back of the paper can be rubbed or pressed by hand with a simple tool such as a brayer or roller. The matrix in relief printing is classically created by starting with a flat original surface and then removing, example by carving away areas intended to print white. The remaining areas of the original surface receive the ink. The relief family of techniques include woodcut, metal cut, wood graving, relief etching, linocut, rubber stamp, form printing, potato printing and some type of collagraph. Traditional text printing with mobile type is also a relief technique. This meant that woodcuts were much easier to use as book illustrations, as they could be printed together with the text. Intaglio illustrations such as engravings had to be printed separately. Relief printing is one of the traditional families of printmaking techniques, along with the intaglio and planographic families. Modern developments have created other types. In contrast, in the intaglio process, the recessed areas are the printed areas. The whole matrix is inked and the ink is then wiped away from the surface, so that it remains only in the recess. Much greater pressure is then needed to force the paper into the channels containing the ink, and a high pressure press will normally be required. Intaglio techniques include engraving, etching and dry point. With planographic techniques such as lithography, the entire surface of the matrix is flat and some areas are treated to create the print image. Normally, relief and intaglio techniques can only be mixed with others of the same family in the same work. Intaglio printing. Intaglio in visual arts is one of the 4 major classes of printmaking techniques, distinguished from the other 3 methods, relief printing, stenciling and lithography, by the fact that the ink forming the design is printed only from recessed areas of the plate. Among intaglio techniques are engraving, etching, dry point, acquaint and mezzotint. Intaglio printing is the opposite of relief printing in that the printing is done from ink that is below the surface of the plate. The design is cut, scratched or etched into the printing surface or plate, which can be copper, zinc, aluminum, magnesium, plastics or even coated paper. The printing ink is rubbed into the incisions or grooves and the surface is wiped clean. Unlike surface printing, intaglio printing, which is actually a process of embossing the paper into the incised lines, requires considerable pressure. Intaglio processes are probably the most versatile of the print making methods, as various techniques can produce a wide range of effects. Virtually all intaglio plates are printed by similar means using a roller press. This is essentially composed of 2 bearing rollers with a movable flatbed sandwiched horizontally between them. A viscous ink is forced into the incisions of the intaglio plates with a roller and the excess ink is wiped away. The inked plate is laid face on the bed, a sheet of wet printing paper is laid over it and a blanket to ensure even pressure, and the blanket is draped over them both. Then the upper roller of the press is turned and the bed is drawn through. A pressure of several tons transmitted through the blanket presses the wet paper into the ink filled crevices of the plate, thus producing the printed image. There are 2 ways of making intaglio prints in varied colors. In the method known as a la paupi French, that means with the dowel, a dowel shaped bundle of fabric is used to apply different colors to different areas of a single plate, which is then printed in the usual way. In the other method, separate plates, each carrying a different color, is successively overprinted on a single sheet of paper. When this multiple plate method is used, the printer must be careful to ensure that each successive color falls in its precise location. The most precise method of ensuring color registration involves the use of pinholes to check alignment. Screen printing. Screen printing is a printing technique whereby a mesh is used to transfer ink onto a substrate, except in areas made impermeable to the ink by a blocking stencil. A blade or squeegee is moved across the screen to fill the open mesh apertures with ink, and a reverse stroke then causes the screen to touch the substrate momentarily along a line of contact. This causes the ink to wet the substrate and be pulled out of the mesh apertures as a screen springs back after the blade has passed. Basically, it is a process of using a mesh based stencil to apply ink onto a substrate, whether it is t-shirts, posters, stickers, vinyl, wood or other material. Screen printing is also a stencil method of printmaking in which a design is imposed on a screen of polyester or other fine mesh with blank areas coated with an impermeable substance. Ink is forced into the mesh openings by the fill blade or segue, and by wetting the substrate transferred onto the printing surface during the segue stroke. As a screen rebounds away from the substrate, the ink remains on the substrate. It is also known as silk screen, screen serigraphy and serigraph printing. One color is printed at a time, so several screens can be used to produce a multicolored image or design. Screen printing is more versatile than traditional printing techniques. The surface does not have to be printed under pressure, unlike etching or lithography, and it does not have to be a planar. Different inks can be used to work with a variety of materials such as textiles, ceramics, wood, paper, glass, metal and plastic. As a result, screen printing is used in many different industries including balloons, clothing, decals, medical devices, printed electronics including circuit board printing, product labels, signs and displays, snowboard graphics, textile fabrics, thick film technology. Trends in printing technology. The latest studies on emerging printing technologies and applications presents a stimulating overview of new technologies and applications and the applicability of these budding technologies for printers and printing industry suppliers. The new arena in printing technology includes printed electronics and displays, 3D printing, the biomedical printing as well as 2D barcodes, and security printing as well as nanotechnology. Each of these emerging printing technologies is generating buzz in the industry. Security printing. Security printing, although being a long-standing industry segment, is changing dramatically due to the increasing sophistication of criminals and heightened number of threats. Security printing, barcodes, 3D printing and nanotechnology provide opportunities for printers to shield a brand owner from would-be imitators by implementing print techniques that are not easily duplicated. Recent technology advances for security printing have been biometrics, unique inks, advanced substrates and 2D barcoding. Biometrics. Biometrics, referring to the identification of humans by individual characteristics or traits, is in use today. For example, in a state issued driver's license, a cardholder's image and personal information is encrypted into a 2D barcode that appears on the license. When scanned, the code provides an image of the actual license holder for comparison to the person presenting the license. Printed electronics. In printed electronics, while commercial printing of complete circuits remains elusive, there has been some success in the laboratory and also pilot scale operations. The first fully printed electronic products will be back planes, which will be combined with today's printed front planes to form a fully printed complete device. Firms that manufacture fluids, ink, formulations or new substrates will be more in demand. 3D printing. Despite the groundswell of hype surrounding 3D printing, the report notes that production speed and cost currently limit commercial manufacturing. 3D printing does, however, represent an accessible opportunity for many printers, not in the application of traditional printing technology, but rather for expanding their offerings to customers, since it is possible to buy equipment and supplies to enter 3D printing with minimal investment. Currently, according to the study, there is a great need for designers, operators and the salespeople who understand the value of 3D applications and can be trained with the solution selling and engineering skills required to promote and maximize this opportunity. Nanotechnology. Although fairly new, this sector of the material manufacturing industry has already created a multi-billion-dollar US market. Nanomatter is characterized by high tensile strength, low weight, high electrical and thermal conductivity, and unique electronic properties. There is widespread interest in biology and biomedicine, computing and memory, electronics and displays, optoelectronic devices, optical components used in telecommunications, and security applications. Of particular interest are graphene, carbon nanotubes, and quantum dots, each under intense research, with new applications being unveiled regularly. Production, however, is one of the biggest challenges that nanotechnology faces. A key challenge will be health and safety concerns related to handling nanomaterials. Barriers for scaling up production include security investment dollars and providing proof of manufacturing consistency. Page layout. Page layout is a part of graphic design that deals with the arrangement of visual elements on a page. It generally involves organizational principles of composition to achieve specific communication objectives. The high-level page layout involves deciding on the overall arrangement of text and images, and possibly on the size or shape of the medium. It requires intelligence, sentience, and creativity, and is informed by culture, psychology, and what the document authors and editors wish to communicate and emphasize. Low-level pagination and typesetting are more mechanical processes. Until desktop publishing became dominant, these processes were still done by people, but in modern publishing they are almost always automated. The result might be published as for phone book interior, or might be tweaked by a graphic designer as for highly polished expensive publication. Beginning from early illuminated pages in hand copied books of the Middle Ages and proceeding down to intricate modern magazine and catalog layouts, proper page design has long been a consideration in printed material. With print media, elements usually consist of type, that is the text, images, pictures, and occasionally placeholder graphics for elements that are not printed with ink, such as dye or laser cutting, foil stamping, or blind embossing. Page layout might be prescribed to a greater or lesser degree by a house style, which might be implemented in a specific desktop publishing template. Typical page layout decisions include: 1. Size of page margins, 2. Size and position of images and figures, 3. Deciding on the number and size of columns and gutters, there are maybe gaps between the columns. Next, placement of intentional white space, use of special effects like overlaying text on an image, runaround and intrusions, or bleeding an image over the page margin, use of color printing or spot color for emphasis. Specific elements to be laid out might include chapter or section titles, or headlines and subheads, image captions, pull quotes and nut graphs or nutshell paragraphs, box outs and sidebars, which present information as asides from the main text flow, page headers and page footers, the contents of which are usually uniform across content pages and thus automatically duplicated by the layout software. This page number is usually included in the header or footer, and software automatically increments it for each page. Table of contents, notes like footnotes and endnotes, bibliography, for example in academic journals or textbooks. In newspaper production, finer selection and cropping of photographs accompanying stories might be left to the layout editor or a photo editor. Likewise, headlines might be written by the layout editor, a copy editor, or the original author. To make stories fit the final layout, relatively inconsequential copy tweaks might be made, for example rephrasing for brevity, or the layout editor might make slight adjustments to typography elements like the font size or leading font. A font is a set of printable or displayable text characters in a specific style and size. The type design for a set of fonts is the typeface, and variations of this design form the typeface family. Thus, Helvetica is a typeface family, Helvetica Italic is a typeface, and Helvetica Italic 10-point is a font. In practice, font and typeface are often used without much precision, sometimes interchangeably. Basically, font is a design for a set of characters. A font is a combination of typeface and other qualities such as size, pitch, and spacing. For example, Times Roman is a typeface that defines the shape of each character. Within Times Roman, however, there are many fonts to choose from, different sizes, italic, bold, and so on. The term font is often used incorrectly as a synonym for typeface. The height of characters in a font is measured in points, each point being approximately 1/72 inch. The width is measured by pitch, which refers to how many characters can fit in an inch. Common pitch values are 10 and 12. A font is said to be mixed pitch if every character has the same width. If the widths vary depending on the shape of the character, it is called a proportional font. Most applications that support text enable you to choose from among many fonts. Laser, inkjet, and dot matrix printers offer the widest selection of fonts. These printers support a certain set of resident fonts, but you can expand the set by loading different fonts from software or from font cartridges. Adobe states that there are over 30,000 type 1 fonts available. Fonts can be purchased as individual typeface families or in typeface collections. Adobe InDesign is considered the most popular layout application. Body. The content part of a page is referred to as the body of the page. It is also the most important part of any page. The text and related content is arranged on the page as the body of the page. It can be arranged in different formats according to the requirements of the page. Measurements. Measurement is carried out in Adobe InDesign in 3 different ways: measurement rulers, measuring objects, measuring angles. Different measurement systems can be set up in a document window for horizontal and vertical rulers. The default units of measure for the rulers are millimeters. The measure tool calculates the distance between any 2 points in the document window. When you measure from one point to another, the distance measured is displayed in the info panel. All measurements except the angle are calculated in the units of measure currently set for the document. After you use the measure tool to measure an item, the line or lines remain visible until you take another measurement or select a different tool. Likewise, angles can also be measured using the measurement tool, either to measure the angle from x axis or to measure a custom angle. Spacing. Spacing on a page in InDesign scenario may refer to different types of spacing within a page in a document. It can be one or more of the following aspects: 1. Character spacing, 2. Line spacing, 3. Paragraph spacing, 4. Object or frame spacing. Top, left, right, and bottom margins also come under the spacing property on a page. Point system. The point is the smallest whole unit of measure in typography. It is used for measuring font size, leading, and other minute items on a printed page. Different points have been used since 18th century with measures varying from 0.18 to 0.4 millimeters. Following the advent of desktop publishing in the 1980s and 1990s, the importance of digital printing supplanted the letterpress printing systems around the world and established the DTP point as a de facto standard. This measure 1/72 of the international inch, about 0.35 mm, and as with earlier American points is considered 1/12 of a pica. In metal type, the point size of the font described the height of the metal body on which the typeface's characters were cast. In digital type, letters of a font are designed around an imaginary space called an M square. When a point size of a font is specified, the font is scaled so that its M square has a side length of that particular length in points. Although the letters of a font usually fit within the font's M square, there is not necessarily any size relationship between the two. So, the point size does not necessarily correspond to any measurement of the size of the letters on the printed page. The desktop publishing point DTP point or postscript point is defined as 1/72 or 0.0138 of the international inch, making it equivalent to 0.3527 mm. 12 points make up a pica and 6 picas make an inch. This specification was developed by John Warnock and Charles Desquet when they created Adobe PostScript. It was adopted by Apple Computer as a standard for the display resolution of the original Macintosh desktop computer and the print resolution for the laser writer printer. Font families. A font is a complete set of characters, letters, numbers and symbols that share a common weight, width and style, such as 10-point Adobe Garamond bold. Typefaces, often called type families or font families, are collections of fonts that share an overall appearance and are designed to be used together, such as Adobe Garamond. A type style is a variant version of an individual font in a font family. Typically, the Roman or plain member of a font family is the base font, which may include type styles such as regular, bold, semi-bold, italic and bold italic. If two or more fonts are active in InDesign and use the same family name but a different Adobe PostScript names, the fonts are available in InDesign. Duplicate fonts are listed in the menus with their font technologies abbreviated in parentheses. For example, a Helvetica True Type font appears as Helvetica TT, and a Helvetica PostScript Type 1 font appears as Helvetica T1, and a Helvetica Open Type font appears as Helvetica OTF. If two fonts have the same PostScript name and one includes .d font in its name, the other font is used. In this unit, we have tried to learn the organization of printing industry in the first module. In module 2, we have also tried to understand the different types of printing processes. The different types of printing processes, including letterpress printing, indaglio printing and screen printing, are explained briefly in module 3. Module 4 deals with the latest trends and technologies in the printing sector. Security printing, 3D printing as well as printing technology in biometrics and nanotechnology are presented in this module. In module 5, the concept of page layout and its various elements are introduced. Before we move on to the next session, please try to answer the following questions. What is the basic organization of a printing company? Explain with the help of a sample hierarchy chart. What are the different types of printing processes? Explain briefly. Briefly explain the process of relief printing. Elucidate on the point system in typography. There are two classical reference books on printing. The one was produced in 1683-84. It was produced by Joseph Moxon. The book was titled Mechanic Exercises on the Old Art of Printing. The co-editors were Herbert Davies and Harry Carter. This book was reprinted in 1962 by Dover Publications, New York. A somewhat later one showing 18th century development is a book titled The Printer's Grammar. It is published in 1808 by Caleb Stover, and the publishers are Craig Press, London. It was reprinted in 1965. Hope the session was beneficial for you. See you in the next session. Until then, bye.